Yeah, dishwasher.
Oh, we can't, so sorry.
No. What have you got in the dishwasher, Sam?
All manner of stuff there today, mate. Loaded it full as it can get.
Love it. Love it. Love a dishwasher chat, don't you? She's good. She's good. Anyway, when are we doing this? Are we?
We are
Thursday.
we are now live, I think. So I'm just going to mute the thing. Yeah, there we go. We're live on YouTube. Just as that was painful. That was painless, wasn't it? So yeah.
Hannah H. Hicks.
So yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first club call here on not on X. I've said X. Oh my gosh, I said X. I should say YouTube. Right, we were on X. We're now on YouTube.
Edit
So
it out.
yeah,
Edit the live stream out.
edit the live stream. So yeah, for those of you who are here for the first time, actually, not sort of come across us before, we are the Property Entrepreneurs Club, and the four of us have decided to take these calls online and visual, so you can actually see us now as we chat. We've been doing this for a number of years on Clubhouse. We started off there, then we went over to X. Now we're on YouTube for the first time. We're still getting our heads around this tech business. I don't know if it's going to be any good. We'll get better, but like all things, we kind of give it a go and then yeah, just improve as you and tweak and get better as we go. So by no means this is going to be the best content I think you'll ever see in your life. In fact, it'll be far from that. But hopefully, it will get entertaining as we go throughout the day, and you know, obviously going forward. So yeah, thanks for having us. First thing I'm going to ask you to do before I say hi and bring the guys in is obviously if you are here on the page, subscribe to the channel. That helps us because it means that next time we do one of these, you get notified. But also it helps with our egos because obviously we all just care about how many followers we've got. No, but also it helps us as well unlock some stuff in what we can do on YouTube going forward. So yeah, give us a subscribe. Also give us a comment and say hi. That would be great to see that people are actually watching this stuff. That'd be really cool. And for those of you who do know us, of course, welcome back. You know how we are here. We like to sort of facilitate and support you guys in the property industry here in the UK. So if there's anything you want us to sort of facilitate and do for you in terms of training or bring people in. Like if you look back on our X channel over the last couple of years, really, we've interviewed some of the top names in the UK industry, property industry. We've covered so many different topics. So today we haven't really got a main focus, but apart from just obviously introducing ourselves here on the new platform, having a bit of a chinwag, updating you on what some of the things that we're doing, and yeah, and seeing how we get on really. So anyway, good morning, gents. Good morning. I'll bring you guys in now. How are you all doing? You all right?
Morning. Morning. Yeah. Host Hannah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Host Hannah.
It's,
Host Tanner Hicks.
I
Host
see you've got
Hicks. We're gonna call you.
I see you've got the Ashdean logo branded polo shirts. You cleaning bathrooms today, Luke?
The I don't know if I can get it in. So repping the Ashton mugs as well.
Yeah, it's a bit
There
right
we
there.
go. Censored. That was it was censored then. Yeah. No, I've yeah got no cleaners on site today, so I've got to yeah step up to the pan. I was going to say the plate. Well, could be can be
Step
the
up to
plate
the
because
pan.
we have got kitchenettes, so I'll step
Literally,
up to the plate.
literally.
I may
The
clean
toilet
them.
pans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the toilet pans. I'll step up to them and give them. I've only got one room to do, so it's not too bad. And then because all of our rooms have kitchenettes in, we go in every day and we make sure that we yeah empty the bins because you don't want yesterday's bean juice dripping all over the bottom of the bin. So yeah, we get them empty and yeah, make sure all guests are happy in their little bubble. Most people normally just close their curtains and put the do not disturb on, and that's it. They might not come out for days. But there we go.
So,
But yeah, hello, hello. When
yeah,
you say Tanner at the start that this will get better, I really don't think it will, to be
of
honest. But
course it will. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
there's a level, and that's where we keep it at.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no expectations. That's the beauty of it.
Well, the fact it's worked straight off is a miracle.
The fact that we're actually on
That's
it,
got to be the
having a
smoothest,
conversation.
the smoothest transition from one platform to another I think we've ever had.
I think it's
And then the
happened.
message from
Look,
Tiffany. Good morning, guys. Good to see your faces.
We've got 5 people
Praise
watching,
God.
by the way, just so you know, on YouTube. So good morning to all the 5 people who are watching us right now. that I think though you five people probably have made me the happiest for a very short time because the people are actually here, and I think one of them's me actually because I've got us up on the
And
team.
one of them's me.
The thing is, though, Tanner, is you want to give it 10 minutes and then look, and then it'll be like one person, and then you'll be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, blew it." But five, that's good. That's a good
So you're
start.
talking
Good
of you're
start.
talking of cleaning, Luke, down on your site. I was down at our HMO yesterday. I was building a bike rack. And it took me far too long to build this bike rack. It was like quite a simple thing. Considering I used to be an engineer, I was putting this thing together and I was just like, this is taking me way too long to build this bloody bike rack. And then I drilled it into the floor, and the concrete floor was the hardest concrete I've ever drilled into in my life.
Is it the
As
only?
hard as concrete.
And I was using my like Makita drill, just a normal drill. I should have brought a plug-in one with me, but I was trying to drill this floor, and I was getting so angry at how hard this concrete was and the lack of like ability of my drill to get through it. But yeah, ended up getting it done, so we're all good. We're all
Well,
good.
I'm going to be in your bag hopefully in the new year sort of thing. So we've got a planning application in at the moment. We're just tweaking the car park, etc., and hopefully you're going to get some more rooms live at the guest house.
Nice.
And the one of the things that was stipulated by planning was that we have to have bike storage. So I've got three bike racks on the site plan now. So which ones have you gone for? Like the ones or like the in a
Real
row?
basic, like floor height. Got like room for 6 bikes. But the handy thing was one of the tenants had already put their bike in the bike store. So I managed to like use it for like positioning of where I needed to put it. So yeah, it was quite handy.
So that
Basic
level
job,
of
but the
security.
little joys.
So that level of security of that rack, basically, could you use like a can opener to sort of chop it in half and take the
Probably,
bike?
probably.
Uh,
But I mean, it's out the back of the property. The only way you can get to it is through the property that the tenants have got codes for to get into the property.
So it's safe.
Yeah, it's safe. And then like they can lock their bikes to it and it's drilled to the floor. So the chances of someone taking something out of there is pretty low.
hmm. Yeah, I've had a few. I've noticed on the CCTV um, a few guests actually like wheeling their bikes into the rooms, and I've always been a bit like, do I say no or do I just accept it? And to be
Mm.
fair, I've kind of just accepted it, and I'm kind of like, I'll wait to see if there's any like wheel marks or scuffs or whatever in the rooms. But I think nine times out of ten, like I think if you're taking a bike into a room that's not yours, you're not just going to smash it around. So
If it was your place, I might.
I mean, one of the things that we were looking at with ours was possibly putting, like in like the hospitals, you get those plastic walls, like on the sides of the walls and corridors, you get almost like a perspex overlay on the wall. We thought about putting them on just to
To lean stuff up against.
yeah, but also just to minimize the scuffs and the damage to the walls. But I think so, like all these things, you can have these great ideas and intentions to do things, and then during the build, you realize, oh, these things are going to just add further cost. So it's getting the balance between cost up front and then obviously cost later on down the line. Is it, for maintenance and stuff? And actually think about how much damage is a bike really going to do to a wall? Probably, yeah, a scuff and a scrape, but.
Well,
But
your
the biggest downfall. I was
your
going to say
average
the
person
biggest
bringing a
down. Sorry,
bike in
Dave,
is
go on.
probably going to look after it, aren't they?
Well, yeah, exactly. I kind of hope so. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, should we? Obviously, we're chinwagging, which is cool. Which is kind of was always going to be the plan to chinwag and I suppose what would be quite good though is again for anyone watching, we're up to 8 by the way now, folks. So this we are properly doing well here.
Are we
Is
4 of the 8?
we're 4 of the 8? Yeah, that's fine. It's okay. It's all good. Like all these things, I always say you got to start. Everyone starts somewhere, right? You got to start from the. If you're at the right at the beginning, and you've got people with millions of subscribers.
Like Simon Squibb would say, what is your dream? Our dream is to have 8 viewers on YouTube Live.
So what?
Without them being 4 of us.
Exactly, yeah. So everyone's got to start somewhere. But should we do some again for anyone watching this now for the first time and have managed to stick with us for all of was it 10 minutes and still don't know who we are? Should we do? Shall I just quickly introduce everyone just to because
Uh,
the introduction is a bit boring, but so basically yeah. First of all, we've got Sam in the top left. So Sam's my business partner. We run
He's
our.
not in the top left, Anna. He's in my bottom left.
yeah, me too.
On you.
Oh,
You
hi
ruined it
Sam.
already.
Hello.
No.
He's in the top left for me, and he's on top left in YouTube. So I wonder whether that's okay. We'll have to
Oh
watch
yeah.
this back afterwards and find out, so we know for next time. But anyway, on my screen, Sam is top left. So he's my business partner, aren't you, Sam? We've been in business for a few years. We run a Gito property group with developers, investors. So we look to acquire sites, develop them out, primarily commercial. We primarily do conversion work, so picking up existing brownfield sites or whether commercial, it could be residential as well, and we'll convert them into something else. So whether that be blocks of flats or HMOs, typically we like our larger scale HMOs, bit of retail space as well. So that's what we do. David in my bottom left, the other bald guy, in case anyone's
Not as much
wondering
as
who
you.
David is. Yeah, who actually bought me this, I should say. So his mini tan. So I
That's
thought,
lasted quite well, hasn't it?
yeah, his head's still on. My little girl.
It lasted quite well.
Yeah.
What could have happened? Else could have happened
Yeah,
to an ornament
what are
over
we
a
going to be
couple of
doing with this
years?
thing?
My little girl Nina, she came in the other week and she was like, "Oh, look at this!" And she just literally just pulled the head straight off, and she was like, "Okay, thanks, darling." So yeah, David, mortgage broker of how many years, David? How many years you been as a in the
Long, quite
long?
a few.
Yeah, a long time. We've known each other probably too long as well, David. Actually, on that basis. So my first mortgage broker back in 2012, I think it was around that
Oh,
sort of
wow.
time. 2012,
Feels
2013.
longer.
Yeah, it feels longer. And we've obviously stuck together ever since. And I think one of the big things is that when you find good people, you stick to it, stick together, right? So David is here to help anyone in this world who's need finance, but also protection. So you do a lot of like estate planning, trusts, wills, life insurances, those sorts of things. So that's David. And then Luke, I'll give you a quick intro. So you've just finished your apart hotel scheme, bought an old B&B, turned it into an 18-bed, fully automated apart hotel, which cleans itself. Oh no, hang on a minute. Got that one wrong. But no,
Not
so
today.
not today. But you've been
AI can't control these.
You've been doing a lot of development work. You'd sort of short lease flats for the last 5 years, buying short lease, extending the leases, keeping hold of them. You've done a new build, and again, you've sort of moved into the world of apart hotels, and I think you're on that journey to get a few more of those, build a proper business behind it as well. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's who we all are. I set up the Property Entrepreneurs Club about 4 years ago, I think it was, off the back of COVID, where we had some good old fun on the Clubhouse app, which I think seemed to just take off during COVID. We had nothing better to do, did we? So and as a space and as a community really for other developers who are and investors in property who basically are quite realistic, bit fed up with the whole NLP heavy sales training programs and platforms where people can actually sort of come together, actually have a bit of fun, but also talk about deals and support each other through that process. So we've got lots of different programs, and have done and delivered lots of different programs, different formats over the years. But at the moment, we primarily just focus on bringing people together in social events, networking events. We do training days, but also fundamentally, our main kind of flagship program is a small, kind of intimate level, high level boardroom mastermind. So we sort of try and limit the numbers to about 12 people. And then we work closely with them throughout the course of a year and have done for the last 3 years. And we've had incredible success from, people coming in, buying large portfolios, like Matt, for example, he bought a portfolio, 3 point something million portfolio last year on 100% vendor finance. To, obviously, Luke, you've been doing some larger schemes. Sam, we've been doing larger schemes as well. We've had a couple of developers in there building out nine units up in Norfolk, around the £5 million scheme mark. So all the way sort of down to people starting out as well, perhaps other entrepreneurs who've got other businesses, a bit of capital, looking to diversify, but actually looking to get into property. So people like Ryan, Adam, people who've sort of transitioned across from one sector to another and fairly quickly got going, bought their first unit. Ryan, he's done really well as well. So lots of great people, but I think fundamentally we're about sort of just getting like-minded people together. Yeah, and like I said, just having a bit of community behind what we do, I think, is the main thing. So that's me and us really in a nutshell. So yeah, it's good to have you here. So we were going to actually have a bit of a focus today, gents. I don't know how keen you are to actually get onto this subject because it's quite heavy, but I can't help but notice that it's the 4th of November as we record this right now, and there is a very unsettling and looming budget around the corner, which has been generating a lot of rhetoric and a lot of I don't know, fluff, possibly, worry. I don't know what you guys are like. I try not to really sort of pay too much attention to a lot of the media stuff because I think a lot of it's there to make us worried about stuff, right? But do we want to talk about politics? I think is probably the first
We could
question.
touch on it. We could touch on it.
Yeah. I don't know
I,
how.
I've never
I've
been
got a
a
little one-liner. I've got a little one-liner, and it's what you were saying there about like these media one-liners, bit of scaremongering, etc. And it's this budget could mark the end of stamp duty as we know it and the start of a whole new era in property taxation. How do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
I always think like all this the media hype, and I think there's a lot of interconnectivity with like politics, the media. They talk, they go, oh, let's push this out and see what response we get, and see what the average Joe is saying, and see whether it gets traction of hatred or whatnot. But I'm very much, I don't know. I just wait until the facts come out. I listen to a little bit of the speculation because it's always good to know kind of what's going on and what's potentially on the horizon. But actually, it's kind of like I just see it as just noise that you just, yeah, just don't have time for. I think work with the facts, and even with things like not necessarily what's coming up, but like the whole Leasehold Reform Act and stuff like that. It's like things that were put into that still haven't been passed, and I'm like, I'm not going to sit around and wait. I'm just going to work with what I've got, and
Mm.
that's that. If something changes and that makes the situation better, then awesome. If it makes it a little bit worse, then you just got to pivot and move and look to step into different sectors. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why the whole apart hotel side of things and stepping into the world of hospitality has kind of become attractive because it takes it away from a lot of the stuff that's kind of coming in. And even with like the SA space, let's say it's like again so much speculation around changes and what's going to come into play, use classes and all stuff like that. So yeah, it's a space that I listen to, but I don't really absorb and run with,
Interesting
run for the
because
hills.
it's interesting because I share a similar outlook to things, but then kind of just coming looking at your own personal circumstance there, Luke, which is so you've chosen to step into retail and hospitality, not retail, so hospitality and leisure, which I think a lot of people could argue is probably higher risk than other sectors at the moment in time. So it's interesting, is it, how we all kind of have our own view, but I think the key here, as entrepreneurs in particular, is about spotting the opportunity within sectors. And I think, the wider politics of the country is going to impact and I think it is impacting every sector. And I think every sector is going to have a negative impact. But at the same time, whenever things like this happen, there's always opportunities that lurk within it, right? Um, so yeah, it's interesting that you're actually finding success in a sector that a lot of people would argue is died or dying. 'Cause
In what way do you think it's becoming higher risk?
well, I think obviously if you look economically, macroeconomics, right, which is and there's an argument to say that the way and where we are at the moment economically is on in not a good way, not a good space, to the point where people are saving more of their funds, not spending quite so freely. And obviously, typically when things start to tighten, and especially if if this budget comes out where we're going to be taxed even more, then we're going to have less dispendable income, right? Or disposable income, should I say? And so naturally, people won't spend as much on the things that they don't necessarily need. Now, obviously, people need housing, which is why I think we're all kind of in property in the first instance. And we know that, and I feel confident that as a sector, there's still a lot of stability there in certain ways. Okay, so there's still risk there. But then disposable income wise, so when you then start looking at the retail, leisure, and hospitality sectors, restaurants, pubs, they're some of the first things that tend to typically get cut back on by people spending. Hotels would obviously fall into that sector unless you've got a link to the commercial side, like so the requirement of or need of accommodation for commercial use, because those commercial business and commercial entities and businesses require accommodation for their staff or other people to continue to do business, right? And I think that's where I suppose linking into what you've got now is that it's more linked to that sector necessarily than relying on like holiday makers, because I think the holidays are some of the first things that tend to be cut down, in my opinion. One, well, not the first
Mm.
thing, but spending on those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because obviously, yeah, I think if you look at everything in a like macro sort of space, let's say that if you say got a hotel in the middle of a city and you're competing against another 20 hotels within the radius and you're all running on sort of 300 rooms, then yeah, it's 100% agree, especially if then within your building you've also got say a restaurant or even down to like leisure and facilities and stuff like that, then 100%. But in terms of where I kind of saw, say, the opportunity is again just zoning into an area where actually those areas where potentially it's going to be higher risk. It's like how can that then be mitigated? So let's say take now for instance the low season that we're all stepping into. It's kind of going well. What's the clientele or the guest type or the guest profile that would stay here? And then we're based down in the New Forest, but we're also very close to the oil refinery. So again, it's sort of doing that due diligence from the off, and it's like, okay, we're literally 100 yards from a national park, so you're 100% going to hit the tourism sector throughout the high season. And at the weekends, which is kind of we when we opened, we only just hit that last part of the summer, um, so I only had an element of like tourism, let's say, but definitely even now, like there's 100% more tourists coming at the weekends, which is great. And then you've then got the other side, which is actually we're in a residential area and 100 yards one way, you're in the national park, so there's no developments that side. If we go 4 miles the other way, it's the sea. So we've got this strip of like probably 7 miles, and it's so refined. And no hotels that have tried to get into the area currently haven't been able to get in, just because the land's just not there and the space isn't there to develop. So it's kind of like there's the opportunity that there's limited accommodation in the area, but then there's highly sought after area for tourism. But then I've also got the refinery, and again, deep diving into the refinery, they said that every quarter they do a lockdown and they have to bring in external contractors, and they bring up to 3,000 external contractors every quarter. So it's like, okay, well, I've got that demand. So again, mixing it all in and looking at it as a whole year round sort of plan, it's I feel that we've sort of chosen an area where it that risk is lowered massively. One, because we're treating it as a boutique apart hotel. So with the use of automations and AI brings our costs down because we don't need as many staff. Well, we don't need any people on site effectively, other than the housekeeping team. It's an unmanned building, so during the
What's
nights
the
and stuff.
Luke? What's the difference in cost in setting all that up? I mean,
But if you
I know
think,
you've done it properly.
yeah, if you think, if you go to a normal, say, B&B, or if you go to a hotel, you've got your reception overhead. So there's a salary straight away before, just as you walk in, just for someone to give you a key.
Mhm.
So if I can automatically send you a door code and you just check yourself in, that's one salary saved. The heating is all done. Every room is individually heated. So again, if I need an engineer to go and mess with the heatings in different rooms, it's all individualized that I can do it from my phone. So again, you've kind of saved someone having to come to site to tinker with bits and bobs. Um, every room's got a noise decibel meter and a smoke detector. So again, from security, it can all be manned via my phone. Basically, I just get alerts to let me know if there's any issues in certain rooms. So again, security, that's another person saved. Yes, I suppose you could say the counter argument would be like, oh, you're taking away jobs and stuff. But are those jobs just being created in the other sectors of where that software is being developed, kind of thing?
I think
Um,
I think as well
so other than
on that point in particular, I think I think that the world's going to evolve anyway, right? And I think and the reason it's going to evolve is because that if you took that site prior to your acquisition and you looked at what existed there in the first instance, it wasn't commercially viable. Hence, and it's a bit like, Sam, the pubs that we've been acquiring and converting, and you'll buy pubs, a big pub that's clearly uncommercial, like not commercially viable to continue running as a pub. And how many have we seen shut down in the UK in the last 5, 10 years, right? Just they hand over fist. I think Sam, you had a stat the other week.
something like one a day or something at the
Yeah,
moment.
it's something crazy. So, and the reason is because they're commercially unviable. So, okay, so what's the solution? It's the stuff, the solution is to create other more creative businesses, a bit like that's maybe automated. Okay, so it might lose some jobs, but you're actually keeping the site,
Mm.
viable. So, making smaller pubs or smaller tap rooms or smaller like retail spaces within those pubs, that will still bring money into the economy, right? Because you're still going to pay your tax on the money that you generate, right? So every pound that's spent, I don't know how much it equates to the amount of tax that actually ends up in the HMRC's coffers, but it's a lot. Um, Not much actually ends up with us, right? So
One of the main problems with the pubs is that the old school type of pub has such a big ground floor area. To be able to get that footfall now, it's just not something that people are doing to socialize as much now. For whatever reason, the health and well-being is much bigger. There's a lot more people, younger people, who are choosing to hang out at the gym or like
jobs.
an ice bath or a sauna than they are going down the pub. And it's kind of like, yeah, what is replacing the pub as we know it in a sense of like that social community place where you take your kids and you hang out for the day down on a Saturday or whatever, watch the football. It's like what does replace that? I'm not too sure.
If
But
you think about the pubs that are successful at the moment, their primary income is typically, not all obviously, but on the whole, it's either accommodation or restaurant, right? Food. Not many like proper old school boozers
mm,
just rely heavily on the liquid sales still exist. So yeah, and I think that's changing through changing habits, right, and evolution of culture as well. And I think you're right. Those younger people, Sam. I mean, you're pretty into your fitness side of things, right? And it's quite a young, like a lot of young people typically, are just gymming it.
yeah,
Maybe that's the future.
Do you think
they're all going to play paddle.
do you think things have just not recovered from kind of COVID times? People have got used to doing other things.
I don't know. I think
well,
that's definitely part of it. But I look back at like when I was in the Navy, and it was kind of like the social thing to do was you're all out of an evening, having a drink, socializing, and it was quite like it was like the culture in a sense. And I speak to people now, and it's like a lot more people are just like tucking themselves away, doing their own thing, and isolating themselves a little bit more, and it's kind of like lost that social element. I'm not saying like drink, like, because obviously drinking is pretty bad for you, really, isn't it? Binge drinking. So in a sense, it's quite a good thing, but also it's taken away that kind of social side of things where, yeah, it's a tricky
Would,
one, isn't it? Like what replaces that?
would you say it's quite interesting? Going back to pans. Um, I went down the plumbers merchant earlier in the year, and I got chatting with the guy that I'm quite friendly with, and he basically used to run pubs up until sort of COVID, and then he got rid of the pub he had. And was like, yeah, I'm kind of done with the industry now. It's just not working. It's falling flat on its face. Blah blah blah, blah, as we all know. And it was quite interesting because he was like, I'm looking to get back into it in about 2 to 3 years' time. And I was like, why? And again, I can't remember word for word kind of what he said, but he said he follows a lot of, I don't know, some sort of political drive and how people are, and I don't know, he does a lot of research on certain areas. But anyway, the thing that he came out with, and again, don't take this as gospel, but he was like, pubs are coming back. Like the next generation coming through are like going to be mental. Like they're going to be there, hands in the air, hitting it up, and pubs are going to have like a big comeback. So he's now looking to invest in multiple pubs ready for this wave. How true that is, I do not know, but
Is
I just
that
found
That's
it
not
quite
big
interesting.
chains buying
interesting.
into? Is that not big chains buying into pubs that are failing? So acquiring stock at a, a rock bottom price so that they can sit on it for 6 to 12 months, then build them out.
Maybe, but he was more on actually a pub, staying in a pub, and that whole opening the doors of a pub and walking into a full packed room of people chatting and da 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 da. Because yeah, maybe was that period that obviously you can't destroy a habit, you can only change it. That those habits have um, changed, so people just aren't doing it. But then that next wave is going to come through and just hit the town with a big one. It's a big night out,
I
big
just picked out a little
out.
one-liner, and it says some companies are signaling confidence. For example, Heineken have announced that it would reopen 62 pubs it had previously closed and invest about 40 million annually into its UK estate.
I wonder whether that's off the back of a lot of zero.
Mm,
There's been a big investment in zero beer,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
0%. And I think obviously there's been, because when I stopped drinking back in 20, when did I stop drinking? Back in 2021.
Five.
Sorry?
So I just finished a 2025
Oh,
last
2021.
night.
Last week.
Yeah, last week. So and I start not to say that I did start drinking again, obviously, but I stopped drinking for three and a half years, and back in 2021, there was probably you could count on one hand the number of zero lagers that there were, or 0% kind of drinks. So in the last few years, we've had a very big spike, and so maybe that's where it's all going. Maybe actually it's still the social element of getting people together. And I think that's obviously that's a human need, right? And I think kind of bring it. We're obviously trying to talk property here, and I think I don't know how relevant and useful this is, but it's certainly interesting. I'm finding it interesting. Is like one of the human needs is obviously shelter, right? Which is what property, but the second one is social interaction, and I think that's where going for a drink has always been the thing. But maybe tying it into the health benefits side of things with the younger generation not particularly wanting to drink, actually drinking zeros, and maybe the larger companies like Heineken, etc., are you see a lot of the advertising, they invest a lot into that. Maybe that's going to be the future. I don't personally, I'm not sure. I
But
just
yeah,
I
the other
don't
thing as well is like more what David was saying there, like COVID hit, boom, everyone's started working from home who can basically. So you've got less people walking home from work, stopping in for a beer,
That's footfall, yeah.
and then that's then just become the norm, hasn't it? Like there's less in intention to then go to the pub, I guess. But
I think that's across all sectors. So obviously it's not relevant for David and Tanner, but like I was in the hairdressers and he
I'm very
says that
there you
like
go.
that they've got a huge industrial estate
fucking big.
behind. Got a huge industrial estate behind. And yeah, he's like his turnover has dropped massively because just people are working from home a couple of days a week, so they're not walking past the hairdressers anymore. Yeah, and that just typical. Oh, I'll just nip in has gone.
And this comes back to my point I've made previously as well, in other forums about the high street, right? And there's a big problem in the UK. I don't know what it's like in other countries. I don't know. So whenever I go on to other countries, more obviously as a tourist, you don't really sort of notice it as much. But certainly here, like high streets have been dying for years, and they've certainly been evolving. They always will evolve. But if we look at kind of bringing it back into the topic of politics and stuff, and some like what's kind of happening out on the streets, I think we do have a problem, a big problem. I think everyone probably realizes the problem, which is less footfall, means shops, certainly larger retails. I mean, Sam, how many larger units have we been looking at acquiring recently, where larger people like a Poundland or a River Island or a WH Smith or somebody who would have like, I don't know, 300 square meters worth of ground floor retail space is just no longer required because the costs for those businesses to cover the business rates and obviously the rent on such large units, it's not justifiable as much now where more people are obviously shopping online. So they're taking actually a lot more of their kind of operations to light industrial parks or kind of warehousing units on the, in the Midlands or by like large, interchange transport hubs where they can actually distribute from a central place or a few kind of satellite locations rather than relying on the high street. And so what that now means is it now means there's a load of empty units. So who's going to come in and fill them? I suppose it is going to be those smaller barbers, and we're seeing it already. Lots of barbers, I mean, there's a high street where we were down a high street the other week, Sam. There was something like 9 phone shops within the space of 80 meters, like fix my phone type things, right? And there's coffee shops and
pop-ups
taxi shops.
effectively.
And I bought the best car, the
Oh, yeah.
best phone holder that
Yes.
goes in your car like ever. Oh my days.
It's automatic.
Expand, expand. Come on.
It's not that exciting, but I was super excited.
It's quite.
Basically, you put your phone on it, and like the two little arms that hold it just automatically just close, and they're like, ooh, and it just does it perfectly. I just every time I pop my phone in it, and I'm happy.
Gives you a little buzz. It's quite impressive, to be fair. But yeah, so I think so. What's the solution to those high? And I think that it does create an opportunity for us as property professionals, in and developers, because something's, I think the country needs to rely on people like us buying those units and maybe repurposing them, converting them, making them smaller perhaps, or into something else, because otherwise they're just going to sit there empty. And we looked at a building the other week. How big was the ground? The ground floor. So the ground floor was 180 square meters of retail space. It's like on a corner. And then you've got a store out the back, and then upstairs again you've got a load of storage over 2 floors. The retailer who used to be in there was who was it? Sam Bright
I
House.
can't remember. It was previously let for like something like 70K a year or something, wasn't it? The
Yeah,
whole build.
70K a year. So obviously on a yield basis, that's going to value up at, 700, 800 plus, depending on where you are in the country, right? Um, it's now on the market for 450, and really it's worth probably 300 tops based on what could actually you could get for it now. Because, a 20-year lease, obviously 20 years ago at 70 grand a year was quite good. Now they've vacated. It's not no one's going to pay 70 grand for that unit anymore because the comparable rentals on that street are probably down at around. We're speaking to a few agents. We reckon the retail space would value up at around 20 to 25k now. So what are you going to do with that site? That site, okay, you put in a smaller retailer who are going to pay 25k a year, let's say. That retail space on a yield is going to be worth maybe 300. And then you've got space above, which is now not usable really because it's storage. It hasn't got any kind of heating or of real facilities up there. So there's then going to be a cost to do something above. So okay, you look at maybe converting the uppers to flats or whatever. That's going to be subject to planning because a PD won't necessarily work on that unit in particular. The viability is not there. So then you're going to have to rely on planning. But yeah, I suppose what's my point? My point is something's going to have to change on the high street. Some people like us are going to have to come along and do something with them. And I do think there is an opportunity there for many people still to help rejuvenate those high streets because, um, and then it's trying to think.
Just on that point as well, is like part of the problem is a lot of the people that are trying to sell these buildings want too much for them because they've had them for so long and they think it's still worth what it was when they
They're
had the
not
good,
recognizing the change in the market, are they?
yeah, when they had a really strong tenant in with a long lease and they're expecting the same value as what it was worth back then, but it's just not. It simply isn't. It just isn't. When you
Mm.
do the appraisal for these sites, it's just coming in so much lower. And I guess it's just kind of you've got to still go through that process, have those conversations, and if they're willing to sell it, they're willing to sell it. And if not,
David,
then follow up and yeah, that's
David,
all.
how are you finding valuations when you're looking to get lending? Are they
Um,
coming in
One
on
thing that's
point or
no, but things are valuing up. One thing that's really odd is kind of the desirability of rental property. So we've had a few this week that have been declined on lack of renter demand, and they're rented out. And it's just like people are investors are buying buy to lets. They're already tenanted, and then the lenders are coming back and saying, well, there's no demand. It's like, well, there's someone there's someone in it. And I know they're always going to look at it on the basis of taking stock back to the market and, what would the demand be for a new AST today? So it's the same as the commercial side of things. It's basically saying if you were to re-let it or go back to the market, what would you get today? But I think there's a huge amount of hesitation with regards to surveyors or valuers because they don't want to stick their necks on the line, and I think that's causing a huge amount of paralysis within the marketplace at the moment. There's this kind of hesitation to get things moving, and I think there's a lot of people who going back to the title of your book, Tanner, for anybody who's read the book, doing more deals. The number of people who've sat on their laurels for 6 to 12 months, and actually, had they proceeded with the project 6 months ago, that what people don't think about is it's not the 6 months now; it's the 6 months in the future that you're losing. So people are sitting doing nothing for 6 to 12 months, sat on a buy to let that they could have pulled another 100 grand out and done another project, or and it's just silly. Another thing to loop back is that with all the changes in the marketplace, what is missing is relationships and togetherness. So if you look at the structure, the way this club's worked, and look at the different people who've kind of flowed through the periphery and everything over the last couple of years, the ones who've made the biggest successes have stuck together with different people. They've formed relationships. They're doing things with people as opposed to on their own. Um, and they're pulling the value, all the unwritten value, the shared information, the shared knowledge. It's the value I think with all these things is learning from what other people do, not necessarily mistakes, but picking up on your idea of the way that you've set things up, Luke. I think that's not happened by accident. I think listening to you. A lot of people would think, oh, well, that was dead easy. Actually, it's not. You've actually put the time and the effort into look ahead and see where you're going. So it's not just it's not just one salary you're saving, it's multiple salaries really. and the time and effort that's gone in to make that work. I think it's not that's not happened by accident. I think that's a really good case study for setting something up. You've not looked to squeeze every penny out of it. So it doesn't matter if it gets upvalued or downvalued, it will still stack up because you've built a quality product, but you've it comes across that you've built something that has a feeling about it. It's a nice thing. It's a quality thing. It's you walk into somewhere and you can see it's cared about. You can see some pride's been taken in the end product.
That's really
That
interesting you
makes a
mentioned
big
that, David.
difference.
It's interesting because actually I think this is where, again, coming back to our point about what's sort of happening out there on the street, I think people will go to something which is quality, right? And I think people will still spend their money if it's perceived value for money. One, obviously, I think we're all probably would happily admit that we all spend money on things that are perceived good value for money, but also which is good quality, right? And so I think coming back to the high streets and you sort of look at some of I think a number of the retailers, a number of the businesses have maybe got a little bit, what's the word when you get a little bit complacent, perhaps not
Mm.
been adapting and evolving quite so much, maybe improving their quality of branding or product. And I think, yeah, I think that will still that will kind of beat the market a little bit. But coming back to a couple of points raised, actually interesting points that I've sort of picked up from what you guys have been saying is the Sam about what you're saying obviously about people selling their stuff off and they're still expecting the valuation to be what it was 20 years ago. I think what we're seeing out there right now is it's typically those people who are selling stuff off. It is the older landlords who have been in the game from the late 90s, mid noughties,
They've made their money already, haven't
who've
they?
made
Most.
their money and who know what it was like 20 years ago when it was easier. There was less tax to pay, there was less red tape. There wasn't the rental reform bill and the EPCs and all the costs and stuff. And so they're used to what they're used to back then. I think typically that generation is selling off more at the moment. Also, probably typically because they're at that age now where they don't, maybe they are cashing in, they're thinking about succession planning, estate planning, those sorts of things. Um, and I still think there'll be challenges with that because obviously they might have bought a building. I think this is what the one that we looked at, Sam, is a good example where I think that the guy bought it for 500 and something thousand back in 2002, 2003, and now we're talking it's worth 300, right? And he wants 450. And it's nowhere near worth 450. So I think there's going to be that challenge and that gap that's going to need to be bridged somehow between what somebody has been sat on an asset with a perceived value in their head to actually the market is saying it's worth right now. So how do we bridge that gap and how do we create those opportunities and do those deals and transactions effectively? I think that's going to be one challenge. But equally, I think you're going to have some people who maybe have, like you said, David, made their money and they'll actually look, okay, let's just so because actually the tax I'm going to get hit by it now if I sell it for CGT or if I own personally, for example, is quite high. So maybe actually taking a lower value isn't the worst thing at the end of the day. And that's just going to come down to the individual, I think. So I think that's a really interesting point, definitely. Um,
Another great example of that was a terrace property, right? We went to look at 800 square meters. It had two commercial properties on the ground floor, and then the uppers he'd like split up into an array of different flats, basically. But you go inside, and it's not been touched since the 90s. There's no like fire separation. There's no FRA in place. It needs to go back to brick, basically. The roof needs to come off, and it needs a whole new roof because it's just been leaking for years. All the like roof trusts and joists are all just completely rotten. But he is totally delusional in the fact that he thinks his building is still worth 2 million quid. Like we're walking around the building, he's like, no, look, it's all up to regulation. We wanted to go up and look at the loft, right? And I've climbed up this little ladder into the loft, and he goes, yeah, we plasterboarded it all out. It's all up to regulations, right? I've got up there. There's like a bit of plasterboard on like on the ceiling, but you can still see the roof. You can still see like holes in the roof. He's partially boarded the loft out, but the ceiling height is like 1.5 meters, and he's there telling me it's all up to regulation and it's all been signed off by the council. And I'm just like, wow, like what is going on? Like this guy's just going to end up with his property for yeah, I think he'll have it for the rest of his life, and yeah, not really ever come around to terms of like what the modern standard is and what actually is needed for it. But I
But
was
that,
thinking if people actually moved in there, it's a hazard. Like if he had tenants in that building, it's dangerous. Like
And I suppose this is kind of what, in a way, I can kind of sympathise to a point. Well, I can sympathise fully with the councils, and in terms of making things safer. It's frustrating and annoying, and it's not great for us because it squeezes our margins a lot. Costs go up. We have to do a lot more. There's more red. There is a lot more that we need to do nowadays than we ever used to. But I can understand why, because you've got people like that who unfortunately are making, like, unsafe spaces. Like, they genuinely, it's a hazard for anyone to live there. Any sort of fire, and those people are, yeah, it's not going to be a good place. It's a shame, really, but I can understand why. Coming back to your
Is
point
that
about
the,
EPCs, though, yeah, the EPC thing, I still baffles me a little bit.
Hmm. Just coming back to you, David, just quickly. Are you finding that people are still buying buy-to-lets
yeah,
just with everything that's potentially coming in?
yeah. I think the majority of people are buying to add value and then to hold, as opposed to just buying kind of willy-nilly. So there's more intellect going into the process. They're trying to add value in a number of different ways. So adding to maybe do a basic refurb or stick an extension or something. But so yeah, there's a lot of money kicking around, a huge amount of money
Yeah.
kicking around, and I think what you'll see is the investors stepping in to take advantage of the market. So while everybody else is sitting running around like a headless chicken, concentrating on the million and one different things that could possibly go wrong with the budget or whatever else is negative in the media, there's people out there who are just sitting there going, right, well, I'll have that one and half that one. And in the same way, Sam, you're talking about visiting different things where people are delusional. These people will end up selling their units at some point, and they'll probably end up selling them as distressed stock at some point in the future because they've left it too long. So, there's always going to be opportunity in the market. It's just finding the little, the margin. It's not even marginal gains, it's significant gains in some cases. If you've got the investors to pull together cash and you don't have the encumbrance of lending, I mean, it's a really still a really good market out there. Yes, it's tighter. Yes, there's regulation. Yes, there's tax to pay. Yes, there's these other hoops that we've got to jump through, but there's still plenty of opportunity so long as people have a proper strategy. Which again, going back to the club again, it's what's the game? What are people trying to do? You guys have very clear strategies, and I think the majority of investors out there actually don't. They haven't thought about what they're doing. You've got too many deal sources out there who actually don't even know what they're sourcing or who they're sourcing it for. Your average property networking gig is literally half the room stands up and says we're property sourcing. Well, that's great, but who for? What for? What's the end game?
I
The
think
whole
that can. Oh, sorry, go on, carry
I
on.
was to say the whole idea of people think they're going after no money down deals, and it's almost like they think they're going after no effort in deals either. You can be a deal maker and make things happen quite nicely. That's not a problem. But there's no such thing as a nothing in. It's either time or money.
Well,
Um,
it's
Yeah.
always time and money.
yeah, yeah. So
But I
there's
think
lots
as
of
well,
opportunity.
the big thing is as well is that a lot of people aren't treating it as business. People are just like it's a little side hustle, or I don't know.
Accidental
It's like
landlords.
we're in property, where
Yeah.
it's like you're not treating it as a business. Like you need to have that business focus, that business model, and that sort of business mindset to go forward and to push forward. Really,
I think
um,
I say this a lot, it very much depends on the individual, right? And I think, maybe this is the time to plug the book, actually, Dave. Thanks for mentioning it. I wasn't planning to, but yeah, I mean, genuinely, that's why I wrote the book a little bit, because I think there are very few there are very few resources out there that actually talk about writing a business plan when it comes to property, right? And actually understanding, the individual, you as the individual, as to where you are at the moment in terms of your access to resources, capital, experience, knowledge, all these things, and ultimately where you want to kind of go with it and how you want to treat it. There are some people who are quite, who've got maybe 10 million quid in the bank, who are quite happily just sticking into the vanilla buy-to-lets at 4 or 5% and making 4 or 5% off 10 million. Because actually, what I'd probably do the same, because I don't need to work any real harder because I've already got 10 million quid, right? Whereas the majority, and typically, obviously, the majority of the people in the club and people like ourselves, we don't have 10 million quid, right? We have a lot less. So we have to be a bit more creative and a bit more hands-on in terms of how to generate those higher returns. And as a result, to generate those higher returns and that income, it is effectively a business. So then it's about understanding what the business model is, but equally then tying that into what the market that you're going out to implement the business model into. And I think there's often a lot of misunderstanding or perhaps a bit of ignorance and naivety because maybe people have been told how easy it is and how simple it is to do X, Y, and Z and become a millionaire and whatever, that they're almost brainwashed in a way to think that it's a lot easier than it is. And the reality is it's not. You've still got to put in the hard work. And so, yeah, having that clarity behind the strategy is really important. And yeah, taking time. I think take people because you're right, David. The second somebody stands up in a networking event says like, "Hi, I'm a deal sourcer." The eyes just rolling up. Okay, here we go again, right? Not to say that it doesn't work as a business model because people do make it work as a business model, but you can instantly tell the type of people who will make it work or are making it work in the nature of those individuals and who they are. It's a very specific model and that it can work, right? But for large proportion of people, they're going to have a lot more success just taking stock, taking check, and actually looking at what other things are out there. And understanding really, do they want to be doing this full time? If they want to be doing it full time, Luke, you've got to be treating it like a business. You're absolutely right. If you're going to be doing this as a secondary income strategy, as a sideline, as a longer term pension style strategy, then you probably could do this as a side hustle in your spare time if you've got a primary income source which is really strong, right? So yeah, I think as you can probably tell, I'm quite passionate about this subject, and I kind of will go off on tangents, and maybe that those people who know me know I do cover this a fair bit, but maybe I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put a link. I'll put a link in. Here we go. The first plug of the day. We'll put a link below here once we've finished for anyone watching to pick up a copy of my book for free on kind of as a gift for watching this today. And we'll get that in. You can read it, and then obviously if you agree with me, great. If not, then you can just chuck it in the bin or use it as a doorstop. Whatever. I don't mind.
Decent
And to be
doorstop.
fair, again, I'm going to plug in as well. If anyone follows the Property Entrepreneurs Club on Instagram, as soon as you hit follow, you'll receive an instant message, which will give you a free digital copy of the book as well.
Ah, well,
So
here we
it's
go.
another way of getting it.
Perfect. Well, there we go then. Well, maybe this is a good point to sort of say, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to us here on YouTube. If you're watching us obviously live on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, jump over to YouTube to watch the video version of this back if you listen to an audio version, and subscribe channel over there. Of course, jump over to Instagram. We put a lot of content out on Instagram as well. So jump over and follow us, give us a follow there. And yeah, should we call that a wrap?
Before we just wrap, I just want to say we did really well there because we started talking about politics and went off on a complete tangent for about 45 minutes and didn't even come back to it. So yeah,
I know I did have a few questions I wanted to drop in about
yeah, same.
a few things to come out, and I thought that'd be a really good question. I never
Next
would have
time,
thought of that. So
next time.
there's
We'll
always
do it
next
next time.
time.
Well, next time we do this, the budget would have, I think it's 26th of November, which is the budget. It's actually happening. So we'll have a bit more knowledge as to what's actually gonna happen. So maybe we can cover
Yeah.
that, and drop that those questions then. So
And then
but
I feel like we need to have like a little slogan to finish. Like, I don't know. Don't stop moving, just do more deals. Oh no, don't stop.
That was quite
That
bad.
was awful. Let's retract that
Don't
one.
stop believing.
Yeah.
Never stop
Um,
believing.
let's work on that, gents.
Believe in yourself.
Let's work. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it. We've still got 7 people watching, so some people have stuck with us. So much appreciation to all of you. Do you guys want to say anything before we quickly wrap up? Last final
No,
thing.
all good. All good. Catch you next time.
No, I think just to very quickly just round off the old apart hotel scheme in terms of why I feel it's a lower risk for myself was that I think that from a demographic point of view, I think the use of like contractor and tourism and being well located and understanding your area is obviously the key point to how it comes. And then it's then looking at ways to lower your outgoings through sort of automation and your overheads and bringing them right down. And that's basically kind of like what has been created. Um, and yeah, I'm talking to other people in the space, and they're saying, "Oh, it's the quiet season now; it's coming down." I'm fully booked. I'm fully booked. It was all last week. This week's we're fully booked. So it really, yeah, it's taken 6 months. It took me 6 months of pure just research and talking to companies and the area and really understanding the demographic to hit the ground running with it really. And just one other thing, which was really random, which I feel like I'll forget to say on the next one, is at the weekend, me and the family, we went for a walk in the forest. We thought we'll go out where tourists don't really go. And yeah, went to a little quiet spot, got out, we had all the pigs running around and everything. There's a little stream, so the kids were running up and down the stream throwing sticks. And then we got about 45 minutes into the thick of it. And again, probably past 5 people. And then there was 2 people walking the other way, and it was Mark Winship and his wife, which they run a podcast, and his does a part hotels. So that he was actually going to come to our SA day last year and do a slot on that. But yeah, so we did a little bit of networking in the forest. So we sat and had a good chat for a good 10, 15 minutes. So it's just bizarre who you bump into and the locations you bump into. But 100% like network is 100% key. But yeah, I thought that was just a bizarre little weekend
Cool.
meetup.
And thanks to that little story, that anecdote, we're down to 0 people watching now, Luke. So we're no, we're not. We
Perfect.
actually pumped up. We actually gone up. We've gone up one listener viewer since you.
Oh,
But anyway,
well,
let's call that there, gents. Yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to us. We do appreciate your support, and obviously, in terms of just creating the community and the club for what it is. It's all about the people who are part of it. So yeah, you make us what we are. So appreciate you guys. Take care, and I'll
Smile for photo. Smile for photo.
smile for a photo.